All right, so Nintendo may have stiffed us with not running their historical February Nintendo Direct in 2025. However, we have a date of probably historically the biggest Direct ever to look forward to, which is none other than the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct that we know to expect on April 2nd. And in this video, I want to discuss and break down everything to expect from this event, because while I don't think that we're going to get Nintendo announcing and completely outlining like every major franchise that they have at this Direct, I do think they're going to want to kick off the Switch 2 hype train and life cycle with a bang. So there's reasons to expect massive once per generation type of announcements, some of which are just obvious because we've even seen games teased, or at least one game teased in the opening trailer, which is Mario Kart. Others of which, though, we have leaks, rumors, speculation talk to dive into, and also just the logical time frame that Nintendo is set for another entry from many of their beloved IPs. So we're gonna break all of this down. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And I want to kick it off with the safe predictions, the ones that I almost am 100% convinced will show up here at this event. And we are kicking that off first with Mario. Now, we might actually get some Mario news before the Nintendo Switch 2 Focus Direct, because Mario Day is March 10th. However, I think this is going to primarily be a sale and discount on existing Nintendo Switch Mario games, and we know that there's actually a bundle model OLED edition with Super Mario Bros. Wonder that's launching or is available potentially right now, I guess, right around the time to help celebrate Mario Day. Maybe that's also Nintendo clearing out some OLED stock. We've covered that in previous videos, but Mario, it's time for some new entries in this franchise, because while we had a lot of spin-off Mario support at the end of the Nintendo Switch's life cycle, we haven't had a big mainline 3D Mario or a new Mario Kart in so many years. It's kind of ridiculous at this point. It has been since October of 2017 since the last mainline 3D Mario, and it has actually been since May of 2014, if you can believe that, since we've had a fresh installment from the ground up in a new Mario Kart game. Because Mario Kart 8 was originally a Wii U title, it was ported to the Switch as a deluxe version, and we actually, I think at this point, know the launch game of Nintendo Switch 2, and it will no doubt be in this upcoming April Direct, and that is the next installment in the Mario Kart franchise. Not to mention it's Mario's 40th anniversary, so there's a lot of reason for Nintendo to go all out with a ton of different Mario titles, but this is the game that is your number one. You can take it to the bank. We're gonna see it there and shown off, because Nintendo does actually have a history of promoting the launch game of their upcoming hardware in the first look trailer, as we saw Breath of the Wild before any other game in the Nintendo Switch first look trailer, and the Switch 2 trailer, literally the only one that we got a look at a game that is, was the new Mario Kart. And we don't have a title for it. We don't know what it's called. We know it's going to have 24 racers because of the starting lines that you could see on the tracks. While the visuals didn't wow everybody, if you actually slow down and look at how much wider the courses are, the visual distance, and the new kind of textures and effects that Nintendo is using here, it is a vast step up from what we saw with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And because of the 60+ million copies that Nintendo successfully sold of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, this does make the most sense on paper to have as your launch game. It's the follow-up to the most successful standalone piece of Nintendo software in history, and they kind of have to go crazy and outdo themselves with this game, because with 96 playable courses, some really cool gravity mechanics, and all of the things that are available in 8, and an active online community that still enjoys the game, Nintendo's going to have to send the message for why all of that heavy base of Mario Kart players are going to want to go out and rush to buy this game immediately. So I think we're going to get some really cool explanations of the mechanics that are in this game. There's some reason to believe that there might be a refueling system of some sort, maybe to go faster. I'm not entirely sure, but we're not going to deep dive and speculate onto all of the individual mechanics, but I do think we're going to get a more detailed look at this game, and hopefully the exact launch date of not only the console, but this game as well, because I do believe it will be the launch title for Nintendo Switch 2. Now, sticking with the Mario theme, and as mentioned, it is Mario's 40th anniversary this year, so lots of reason to expect a lot of Mario support from Nintendo. We have the next entry in the 3D Mario franchise, and I personally believe that this will be the holiday 2025 game, an October launch, something similar to that of Odyssey, but Mario's next big 3D adventure, whatever that looks like, will indeed maybe even be the show closer of the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. I could see something like a hardware and price point trailer maybe opening the event, then we get Mario Kart early on in the event, and the show closer announcement is the next big 3D Mario adventure. And we don't know what direction Nintendo's going to go with this game. Open world seems to be something that people have thrown around out there. You could argue Mario Odyssey is open world-ish already, but maybe not having even any kind of hub that you have to travel to different worlds, but rather just have a true open and connected Mario game, kind of like Bowser's Fury felt like a sandbox test for having a massive connected zone all built out in a Mario world. Maybe they take that to the next level, obviously with fast travel and teleportation points and things like that, but maybe Mario goes into truly open world connected map. That also seems like it's very hard to pull off for a fun and engaging 3D platformer, so maybe they don't do that and they actually stick to a more traditional level layout, but they just do expert top-notch 3D platforming at its finest, kind of like Astrobot. If you play that, it actually deserves the hype. It feels like a modern day 3D Mario game, but I do believe that Nintendo can probably elevate that at this point in time to even a higher standard for what 3D platforming can become. And the Mario team has had such a long time to develop this game that there is a lot of reason to be hyped for it. And I do think it's going to be the big holiday seller. It's also probably going to come out close enough to the hype of the next Mario movie that this is another mainstream new eyeballs attraction type of thing for Nintendo, where you just have new fans, new generations of kids going out and buying a Mario game for the first time on Nintendo's next gen hardware. This is all stuff that is highly likely, and Mario's going to be showcased at this event, no doubt. The next franchise I want to discuss is Metroid, and it is because I do believe that with the lack of news for Metroid Prime 4 at a February Nintendo Direct, since that did not happen, it is that much more likely to not only get the confirmation that Metroid Prime 4 Beyond will indeed be a cross-generational game, meaning it has a Switch 1 version and Switch 2 version, like we've seen Nintendo do with multiple Zelda titles in the past. I think that Metroid is getting that same treatment with Prime 4 Beyond this time around, but I also think we're going to get the exact launch date, and that launch date may indeed also be right around the console launch, because if Mario Kart is indeed the main launch game for Nintendo Switch 2, and that is focused around multiplayer and online and all of that stuff that you love, well, then you kind of need that deep dive single player gameplay experience that Nintendo likes to put out there for their hardware as well, and Metroid Prime 4 might actually be that for Nintendo this time around. It would also be very cool to see an updated trailer where we see gameplay footage from the Switch 2 version, and it's noticeably better looking than that of the June presentation that we saw with the first footage of the game. Like, I'm not expecting day and night difference, but more advanced light reflections with ray reconstruction and things that we know that the Switch will support. DLSS enabled, should have a rock solid 60 frames per second and 4K, potentially docked via up-resing, of course, and things like that with DLSS. But I think we're going to see a more detailed look at Metroid Prime 4, a launch date around the console launch, if not on the launch date of the console. And hopefully, if Nintendo's nice, they might just shadow drop or surprise announce Prime 2 and 3 remastered, or at least say that they're going to be playable before Prime 4 ultimately launches. But if that does happen, I'm thinking that's the only piece of Switch 1 software that you should actually expect from this presentation, because I think everything's going to be Switch 2 focused entirely, as the name tells us, Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. But yes, Metroid will be there in my personal opinion, and Prime 4 hopefully with a Switch 2 version confirmed and a launch date given to us as well. Is it time for the next Super Smash Bros? This is a very valid question, and while I'm not fully expecting it to show up at the initial Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, I do think that there is a chance that Nintendo teases it and shows it off in some capacity. It may not be ready until 2026 or beyond, but I do think that this game is coming. Sakurai himself stated that he has been working on a project for the last 2 years. In fact, we found out that he filmed all of his YouTube videos in like 1 or 2 months, something like that, but released them over the course of 2 years. And in the final video, he actually did say that he's been working on a game actively that he can't talk about yet, Now, it doesn't mean for sure it's the next Smash Bros, but what is Sakurai known for? Smash Bros, and can he outdo Ultimate in any way, shape, or form? It's going to be a tall bill to live up to, but I do think that if there's one mind that can still somehow tweak and improve the formula and maybe just give us some new gameplay mechanics in Smash Bros that elevate everything from a battle perspective, I think we have the right person for the job, and Nintendo's not going to stop creating new Smash Bros games. And I think Sakurai, it's his baby. I don't think he's going to be able to walk away from it. So I think we're relatively close to hearing about Super Smash Bros news potentially at this Nintendo Direct as well. The problem is going to be that Ultimate is a thing, and the roster and things like that may not ever get done again. Sakurai's been pretty transparent that he doesn't believe that he'll ever be able to get the same kind of level of character support as he got for Smash Ultimate, and it does have that name Ultimate on there for a reason. So the worst case scenario is we get some kind of upgraded 4K version with additional characters that is Smash Bros Ultimate just carried over to the Nintendo Switch 2, and that's the announcement. But I do believe that they are going to just do a fresh installment from the ground up, better visuals, take advantage of all of the new tech in Nintendo Switch 2, and still have a very strong character roster and hopefully a long roadmap of new characters to come. But whether or not it takes out Ultimate as being the best Smash Bros ever, that remains to be seen and will definitely be a tall order to live up to. Now, Donkey Kong is also a franchise that Nintendo loves. He's a household name. He's featured in the Mario movie, and he's actually the first expansion to the Nintendo World theme parks, yet he has not had a brand new game since Tropical Freeze on the Wii U, also released in 2014. So we are overdue for something new from DK. And I think while, we had the simple Donkey Kong Country Returns HD port release on Switch recently, I don't think Nintendo's done with DK there. I think that's just a simple end of Switch lifecycle game to throw out to have support for your aging hardware, but I think we're going to get something fresh new for DK. And will it be kind of the Kirby and the Forgotten Land moment where DK goes back to 3D and maybe something more like a fixed camera, a little bit like what Kirby and the Forgotten Land does, but with DK style gameplay? Something like that could be very cool. Maybe they do just go with a 2D platformer yet again, but with Retro being busy with Metroid Prime, I actually think the likelihood of DK going to 3D in some capacity is the more exciting and likely outcome from this. So it's a coin flip on whether or not it's at the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, in my opinion, but I think early on in the Nintendo Switch 2's life cycle, we're getting the next from the ground up DK game, and it's a perfect venue to reveal it, or at least give us a small teaser first look at, because it's just been too long since DK's gotten some true from the ground up love from Nintendo. There are rumors for Star Fox making a return, and I do think that something launching on the Switch 2 at the beginning of the life cycle of the console might be a great way for Nintendo to really try to bring back this franchise in full force. The rumor around this game coming back suggests that it's something very different than Star Fox Zero, which was the last entry in the franchise on the Wii U and was, of course, a space-based shooter yet again, which makes me wonder, is there a world where Nintendo goes back to something similar to the formula of Star Fox Adventures and maybe doesn't call it Star Fox Adventures 2, like they might just come up with an entirely new name. But now that we have this kind of new open air gameplay for Zelda games, I actually think it creates a perfect window of opportunity for Nintendo to continue to produce more linear based 3D action adventure games with dungeons and items you find and bosses, essentially the 3D Zelda classic formula that you know and love from games like Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and Skyward Sword, but give that to another franchise, and I think Star Fox fits that build. And it would be really cool if you went to different planets, explored different ruins and dungeons and bosses, but you still have some space combat involved as you transition between planets. I think things like that could be really well done with Star Fox, and while it's all speculation in terms of what kind of game we would see from Star Fox, I do think he's going to come back in some big way, and the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct might be the perfect venue to see Star Fox return. Animal Crossing New Horizon was Nintendo's second most popular Nintendo Switch piece of software from a sales perspective, and I don't know that we get this next entry in the Animal Crossing franchise as soon as the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, but I do know that Animal Crossing is coming back for a brand new game, 100% certain in the Switch 2 lifecycle, and probably relatively early within that lifecycle. So there is a shot, in my opinion, to see Animal Crossing show up at this event, and it's going to be something brand new from the ground up again, and it's probably going to be very similar gameplay gameplay to that of New Horizons, but just elevated to yet another higher level. And I think that this one also is going to be a smash hit sales success for Nintendo once again, because Animal Crossing just has that core committed fan base at this point that they don't have to worry about the game flopping, so they can put out something adventurous and different and really refine and take that gameplay to the next level and make it a visual showpiece with all of the upgraded tech that will be inside the Switch 2. And hopefully we get a look at that as soon as the Switch 2 Direct. The last franchise I want to mention, and it's my favorite out of the entire list, although Metroid close second, and I obviously love my Mario games, we have to talk about The Legend of Zelda, because while we don't know for certain that Nintendo will do anything with this franchise in the year of 2025, historically on the Nintendo Switch, we saw them release one new Zelda piece of software per calendar year, and we have not gotten any kind of announcement or confirmation that anything Zelda is happening in 2025, and I do think Nintendo wants something Zelda on their next gen console relatively soon after launch. In terms of what that piece of software is, obviously we've had the long rumored Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. We've been talking about those games for far too long. They have yet to materialize. I actually think that those could be more likely Switch 1 pieces of software to continue to support that console as Nintendo transitions to new hardware, as opposed to them being something that gets ported to Switch 2 early on. A brand new 3D Zelda game, it feels like it's too early to see that, although you can make the argument that when Nintendo started to tease Tears of the Kingdom, saying that the sequel to Breath of the Wild was in development, we got that reveal very early from when the game actually launched. So if Nintendo does that same thing, we are actually in a similar timeline to when they would show it off and announce that it's in development compared to when we see the final product. However, if Nintendo's using a brand new different engine this time around and creating a whole different Hyrule, I think that we're a ways enough off from them having something ready to show that maybe we shouldn't expect that next big 3D Zelda to show up at this Direct, which leads me to the conversation. And it's a heavily rumored game, but also not one that has a ton of, let's say, credible sourcing on, other than maybe some teases from Aonuma if you want to stretch it to that point. I do think that Zelda Ocarina of Time getting a from the ground up detailed remake for Nintendo Switch 2 would be a huge win, and it could be yet another game that you could argue should be a show closer for Nintendo to just show that thing off. Maybe it doesn't come out in 2025, but we get the tease that it's coming in 2026, and that may even line up close to the Legend of Zelda live action movie and Zelda's 40th anniversary, which will be celebrated in 2026. It is a possibility that Ocarina of Time is the next big game for a from the ground up remake. And I think if they go all out with the visual quality, evolve some gameplay mechanics, add in some new content potentially, and maybe even give us some more context to the story and things that unfold, I think it's a huge win for Zelda fans. Everybody would want to go rush out and pick that thing up day one, and Nintendo would be a fool not to do it eventually. So I do think that there's a shot that Zelda shows up at this showcase, although it is on the lower end of the likelihood, and also why we saved it last. So I'm sure there's a ton of other franchises. I could have made this video twice as long talking about them all. F-Zero, Kid Icarus, Fire Emblem, and many, many more. But of course, this is just going to be the first of many Nintendo Switch 2 focused directs, and I think we're going to learn about a lot of these franchises over the course of time. But this first one, I think, is going to go up with a huge bang, and Nintendo's going to try to do everything they can to create all the hype that they want in their fan base for the launch of this next generation hardware. So I'm expecting some big names to be there, probably not all of them. I don't think Nintendo's revealing all the cards this early on into the console generation, but they are going to reveal a lot. So I personally cannot wait for April 2nd. I will, of course, be live streaming that Nintendo Switch 2 Focus Direct on the channel, so get subscribed and make sure you have notifications on for that so we can hopefully enjoy it together if you choose to watch it here. And let me know in the comments down below what of the franchises we mentioned on this list are you most excited to see the next entry for, and which ones that were not mentioned are you also hopeful may have some kind of presence at this Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. So make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn your notification bell. And with that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.